Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 20 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show in which we go back through all of human history and find examples of utter amazing stupidity so that you can learn lessons from these terrible moments and never repeat those mistakes again. But who are we kidding? We're humans, we like mistakes, and we especially like mistakes because they give us content. Content is how we earn money. Occasionally, when we finally get advertising revenue.
Okay. I was like,
we're still waiting on that. Yeah, we earn money? No, we're currently spending it. Joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
It's cooling off. It's been rainy and stormy, and I got to sit and enjoy that all day yesterday. So
I love that.
No complaints.
Yeah.
And my house didn't even leak.
So. Unlike mine. That's because you guys, it's a very American thing having a porch, right? We don't really have those here because it's too fucking cold half the time. But most of the UK has conservatories, which are just giant glass boxes on the back of our houses. And the people who have built them more recently have realized they're baking hot in the summer and freezing cold in the winter. So we built ours with a glass roof and a glass front, and that's it. Like the sides are walls, and we have a radiator. So in the summer, it's not as hot because it's not just an entire glass greenhouse.
Right.
And in the winter, with the giant radiator we've got there, it keeps it nice and toasty. So I can sit out and stare up at the stars at night, which is something I've always wanted to do. That shit is wonderful.
I'm envious as hell now, man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That.
Yeah, you don't see quite as much. You've got quite a lot of light pollution here in the West Midlands because it's very urbanized. But when I go back to Anglesey to see my family, like, you can see everything. There is very little light pollution there. It is like the Milky Way. All of that is completely illuminated, which I'm sure you guys get in like kind of less suburban Arizona as well.
I think so. I don't remember anymore. I was actually just having that conversation with my wife, Sandra. She was saying, I always want to go where I can, in real life, see the Milky Way in the sky with my own eyes.
Well, I
don't know where that's
at. Just come to the UK. We have loads of places we can take you. You will see. Yeah, seriously. It's like, even like, I mean, maybe not central London, but you go 20 minutes outside of any major city in the UK, you will see the Milky Way, like on a clear.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Okay. My big thing is to see the Northern Lights. Like, I need to see the Northern Lights before I die.
Those are amazing.
Yeah, I know. I've never seen them. I've always been close, but I've been to a lot of countries, but never like Scandinavian countries or somewhere like Canada or somewhere like that where you can see that shit. Yeah, I need to see that. Toastozoid's here. Sorry. Hi, hey. Toastozoid. Good to see you, my man. So yeah, have you seen Aurora Borealis?
When I was young, I was up in Duluth, Minnesota. Like when I lived up in Minnesota,
of course.
I think we tried to go to Canada to see them. Couldn't get across the border for some reason, so we just sat at Lake Superior, and they came down on that northern side. It was, I don't know, I was probably like 7. It was amazing though.
Oh yeah, that's like, sorry, you just said we tried to get into Canada, but I couldn't. I just had this image in my head of Super Troopers, which I think you guys have got a different name for. He's like, trying to get over the border to get some maple syrup,
French fries and gravy, sir.
French fries and gravy, sir. I love that whole scene.
I'm Canada out, really, man.
Was it the Snozberries taste like Snozberries?
Yeah, dude, that's one of my favorite movies. Did you see the second one?
I haven't. No, I know it's out. I need to see it. I like a lot of the stuff that Chey, what's his name, the guy who directed it and does most of the
Mustache Man. I have no idea.
I know. Who wants a ride? But yeah, I do need to see the sequel. I love that film. That film got me through so many. Like, I was like, oh, I feel like shit tonight. I'm going to put that film on. I laughed without fail every single time. It really hit me somewhere quite major. Yeah. I don't know why.
See, and that's honestly, I think that's why I thought I wanted to be a cop, is because I thought that's what it was like when I was a kid.
and that's why I wanted another reason I wanted to work in a record store, because I thought it was going to be like Capitol Records. And
dude, see, I thought it was going to be like Empire Records, and then they were
Empire Records. That's the one I meant. Sorry, yeah. With Liv Tyler and Renee Zellweger in that.
Yeah, that's actually based on a story that was written by a person that worked at, I think, Tower or Capitol.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Here.
Tower in LA.
No, it was a record store at I think Desert Sky Mall. It was an employee there that was the writer of the short story that inspired the movie.
I didn't know that. I just thought it was a vehicle for, like, I don't know, Liv Tyler or.
I'd give you sources, but I could have just made it up.
It sounds real. So
I seen it in a New Times article. That's our independent local free magazine here. So
yeah. So that's the thing. I get a lot of secondhand information about. Oh, this film was based on a book, and I'm always quite surprised when I learned that. I did not know that Empire Records was based on that. Toastoid, my ancestors were Vikings, so they probably saw the Northern Lights a lot. Yeah, they may have used them for navigation actually, because man, those fucking Vikings, they beat Columbus to America by a few hundred years. They were pretty good sailors
on what essentially was a raft.
Yeah, basically,
but not
like
a sex raft.
No, not a sex raft. A kind of a raft with a slightly ornate dragon on the front of it, like that. Yeah. So interestingly, the part of North Wales I'm from, there is a town there called Llandudno, which is a big tourist location, because it's like it's like a perfectly preserved Victorian town. So you've got all the stuff, and also it's where Alice from Alice in Wonderland lived. So Alice Liddell lived there. So there's like all of this like Alice in Wonderland stuff dotted all over the town, like carvings and the secret valleys, and it's a whole thing there. But nice. They've got two beaches, and the town's in the middle. But there's two giant rocks either side of it, massive things called orms, and it's actually featured on the second Thor film, The Great Orm. Orm is actually derived from the Scandinavian word for snake, because when the Vikings were fucking raiding the coast freely, they rounded the corner, they saw this massive rock, and they went, "Oh my god, it's a giant snake! We're getting the fuck out of here!" And it wasn't; it's just a giant rock. But yeah, that's where it got its name. So Toasty, your ancestors weren't the smartest bunch. Anyway,
they did practice good hygiene, from what I understand, though.
Yes, they did. They were very clean, and they like to wax their beards. Away from all of that, Derek, can you tell us who your idiot for this episode is, please?
Well, from one rabbit hole to the next, I wandered down one of those again this week, and as I do, it's interesting nonsense and documentaries and funny stuff, and it's Halloween time, so I'm watching scary movies.
Nice.
And not that this has anything to do with anything, but we watched this new series on Netflix, I think it was called The Midnight Club, which
I've seen it. It's brilliant. I love that shit. I loved it. I didn't think it was as good as the Midnight Mass.
Oh no,
it was really good.
Right, but and it's the same writer though, right?
Yeah, it's the same Mike Flanagan who did Dr. Sleep and House of Bly Manor and all of that, and
just as good as all the rest of his stuff.
Oh yeah,
but in the beginning of
very
it,
consistent.
They talk about in the 1920s in America, cults were huge. There was cults going off all over the place here in the United States in the 1920s, and I was like, "Is that real?" I'm gonna have to look that up. And in that, I found who I'm covering today. It's one of those weird cults that's bizarre and almost humorous until you think about the fact that they were probably responsible for the deaths of some people, but they were never actually brought to justice.
Wow.
So it's kind of like that. Well, no, it's not like the Countess that was a mass serial killer.
Yeah, because that was we covered that last
Halloween. You did
Halloween. Yeah. What was her name?
I'm drawing a blank.
Bathory?
Maybe Toast Note. Yes, maybe
Bathory. Yeah, and she allegedly murdered and mutilated like hundreds, maybe thousands of people, but a lot of it is like flawed evidence and maybe just railroading. So yeah,
this is some.
Aleister Crowley. Oh, that's a good suggestion. Actually, you know what? There's a good suggestion for
Dibs.
Halloween. Yeah, go for it. Take him. I don't mind.
All right. So back to this cult. Yes, a different thing here. It may be just like salacious journalism that kind of led to this, but there's real stuff attached to it that caused the stories. So she's not innocent by any means. Right. Kind of a bit of a grifter, and she's a woman. Haha! Didn't see that coming, did you?
Ah, yeah.
A woman cult leader.
A woman cult leader. It's kind of rare. that, actually. It's mostly crazy guys that are cult leaders. I mean, there are plenty of crazy women around them, but the leaders tend to be men. There's all sorts of probably scholarly like looks into why men are cult leaders over women. But yeah, I'd imagine that there's a specific reason for that. But yeah, wow, a female cult leader.
Yeah.
I'm interested now.
Okay, so she's born in Storm Lake, Iowa on August 2nd, 1881. At the time, her mother's 15 years old, which wasn't uncommon back then, and was newlywed to a man by the name of William Otis.
Okay.
The family history gets a little bit muddy from there because her mother and her grandmother were all named Matilda.
Ooh, that's a bit weird.
So when you're researching the history and trying to do the biography, it's like Matilda 1, Matilda 2, Matilda 3. And then I started getting confused, and I figured, just for the sake of my sanity and yours, Matilda 1 and 2 will be known as Jeannie, her mother, and May, the one I'm covering. And you probably know who it is now.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So anyway, Matilda. Jenny remarried, moved to Washington. May was around 18 at the time.
Okay.
And it kind of gets weird because the 1900 census, Jenny and her new husband Edgar had a 10-month-old daughter living in the home. But 10 years later, there were no children. And that's because the 10-month-old daughter was actually probably May's daughter, not Jenny's, because back then you wouldn't want to have a child out of wedlock.
Sure.
And her mom covered for her to keep up appearances, and she could find a husband, which they did.
Yeah.
And he actually took in her daughter Ruth, and she took his name, and she became Ruth Angeline Weiland.
Okay.
And she joined her mother and her new stepfather in Oregon, and the young family settled in there just a little bit away from May's mom.
Right.
And not too long after that, she files for divorce again, and she wants sole custody of Ruth.
Okay.
Because, well, it's just her stepfather anyway, even though she took her name, and it's all kind of confusing, and it's the 1900s, and there's not a lot of good records.
No.
The next year, the Portland City Directory listed May as a widow, though.
Ooh.
So it's most likely because it was viewed better to be a widow than divorced in the early 1900s.
Yep. And I guess same from the male perspective as well. But I mean, less so for men. But yeah, there was like so much social stigma around divorce right up until the 1970s, I think, really. So
kind of, yeah.
It took a long time for that to wear off, really.
The problem was I started pulling on that string, though, and I couldn't find any records of him after, so he may have very well died. Oh. She could have had some sort of Black Widow situation.
Yeah, maybe.
I could have just made that up right now like I tend to do with things. So she's married again in 1915, but that one's short-lived also.
Okay.
And before she gets married to her third husband, she's got time to create a motion picture studio.
What?
Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I did not see that coming.
Me either.
No. Was it Warner Brothers? Was that where the evil started? Sorry, Warner Brothers. Please give us money.
Yes. Anybody that wants to, really. I'll take any. Well, never mind.
Almost
not any of that one guy's money. Anyway, May's dream was to produce and direct films, but it wasn't an easy thing to do back in the 1900s. It's like the early dawn of the silent film era.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, she founded her own production company called Starlight that she personally financed through possibly grifting.
Yeah, a lot of studios did at that time. There was a lot of you either had a huge amount of startup capital or you kind of stole it. Like a lot of people did. So yeah, and there was mob ties and all sorts of craziness. A lot of early film industry was like a bit of a money laundering thing.
Kind of. Well, and this is a weird situation, too, because she still hasn't left Oregon.
Wow. Okay.
So she's got a film studio production company that she started up in Oregon called Starlight. Okay. And she puts out what may have been Oregon's first full-length movie, A Nugget in the Rough, which starred her daughter, Ruth.
Okay.
So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, not too bad of a start.
No, that's really interesting. She's clearly got passion for this. So
absolutely.
Yeah. That's great.
you might say she was like a bit of a pioneer as an independent woman going through divorces, raising her children on her own, making movies. Like it's an inspirational story now.
It really is. That's really, really amazing. So far, well on board with this woman's journey.
In 1918, May and her daughter Ruth set out to chase their filmmaking dreams and head down to Los Angeles and get started in Hollywood.
That makes sense. And you know, you've got something to show to people now. So you got like the actual reel of your film. You can say, hey, I'm in production. Why not hire me? Because it was such a small industry at that time that having your own full-length feature would have been huge.
Exactly.
Really cool. Yeah.
And so you would think they'd do really well, but it was a bit of a bust. Nobody was buying. They weren't interested in it. Her daughter Ruth did work as an extra on some films for Fox.
Okay.
But eventually she left that to become an exotic dancer, where she was basically a stripper to keep them alive for a little while, and things kind of started to get dicey.
Okay.
They were struggling, barely getting by, and it was right around that time that they say they were visited by an angel. Now, there's a couple of different versions of it. So it's either the Archangel Michael or Gabriel.
Oh, right. Okay. So they look similar. You know, I've met them both. So, you know, I could see how you would get them mixed up. You know.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think they said it was Michael, but I'm not sure exactly.
If one of them had an oboe, it was probably Gabriel. So just putting that out there, you know.
An angel's an angel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So he stays with them for 3.5 years.
Wow.
And during that time, he transmitted to them the revelations about the divine truth. He said all kinds of stuff about the end of times in the books of Revelations. He also revealed to them the location of unbound wealth in the form of rare precious stones that were buried somewhere near Bakersfield.
Why the fuck would an angel care about that shit?
I don't know. Why would jewels be outside of Bakersfield?
Bakersfield, yeah.
Ugh, nothing there. Not sorry, everybody in Bakersfield.
Sorry, people in Bakersfield, but if you want to escape, then you know.
Your city smells like oil and onions.
Oh, yeah.
So May claims that this angel that's with them and just telling them things. She says that he instructed her and her daughter to write a book called The Great Sixth Seal. That book was supposed to transform humanity and usher in this new golden era.
Every book's meant to do that, I think. That's what every author wants. I've got to change the world.
Well, I just want somebody to read my stories.
Yeah. Let's just get Derek paid. Yeah.
Indeed. So she's told that she's going to be one of 11 queens who's going to rule the world from the 11 mansions that would be built on Olive Hill in Hollywood. Because that's where all religious revelations need to start, I guess.
Yeah, there's going to be 11 queens, and everyone gets a mansion. You get a mansion, and you get a mansion, and you get a mansion. Did I mention this is a religion? What the fuck?
So May and Ruth decide that the time is now getting right to publish their work right before the prophesized end of days by Margaret Rowan on February 6, 1925.
Right.
Margaret's the leader of the Reformed Seventh-day Adventist group that said the world was going to end, and they kind of glommed onto that, and it got their name in the papers, but it also got them on the radar of a city prosecutor that was already investigating Rowan for potential fraud.
Okay.
He kind of, I guess, maybe guided some of the media onto a series of articles that May and Ruth first had publicized that were announcing for the book and their divine churches and the 11 things and
mansions.
Yeah, and then off to get even weirder, May gets married to her fourth husband around this time also. His name is Ward Blackburn. Now get this. Ward's mother died in 1912, and then his father married May's mother, Matilda, or Jeannie. And then Matilda is married to Ward, and then the other one's married to his dad. And so then May is essentially her own stepsister, I think.
Oh, that's so crazy.
And her daughter's
real,
her sister too, I think.
Yeah, real Game of Thrones level shit going on at this point.
Exactly. Only in LA. So
yes.
So May and her daughter and Ruth, or a daughter sister, I wrote.
Right. Daughter sister, yeah.
Are out there in LA struggling. Ruth is stripping to help keep them afloat. May marries her stepbrother, and there's actually no marriage record on that, though. So she may have just taken her stepdad's last name when she became May Otis Blackburn.
Okay.
And the reason I bring up the Blackburn thing is because the cult is known as the Blackburn Cult.
Okay.
Also known as the Great Order of Divine Order Secretaries, something, whatever. It's super long.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of this. This is completely new to me. New territory.
I hadn't either, so it was new to me. And then I found out that they're crazy and they buried people in salt with puppies, and it's cool.
What?
Here we go.
Why would you do that to? Oh my god! Oh my god!
I have no idea why, but we'll get there. So there's a bit of an uproar around the end of times prophecy, and they kind of take the opportunity for that publicity to launch their new divine order, aka the Blackburn Cult, which was incorporated in March of 1925 with the express purpose to aid children and adults in distress. Noble cause.
Okay, that sounds like a reasonably noble thing, but like everyone, it's like a mission statement by a company. We're driven by sustainability. So then when you dive into it, like, really, what are you doing? You're planting trees. Like, we're focusing in on initiatives, and it just sort of trails off into nothing.
We drill oil.
But we make sure it doesn't spill or something. I don't know.
Often. At that same time, she's arranged for the creation of a publishing company in the name of her Walter J. Blackburn stepfather, I think, is who it was. And that's situated at Olive and 10th Street in downtown Los Angeles. It's supposed to be possibly the first mansion on Olive Hill.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, where'd I go? So they're in downtown Los Angeles. They're running a publishing company to put out these religious tomes, and they're writing their books from the information that they were given by Gabriel or Michael or whoever, somebody, some homeless guy that said he was an angel and lived with them for 3 years. Basically.
I'm an angel. Maybe it was someone selling angel dust. I mean, it's LA, so
it is LA.
Yeah, Hollywood Boulevard.
Anyway, yeah, dude, it definitely was. That's exactly what it was. It was a homeless guy off of Hollywood Boulevard selling angel dust, and they just
I've got angel dust. Can I live with you for 3.5 years? I've got some stories to tell you.
I'll tell you about this wild story. These jewels I buried in Bakersfield.
11 mansions. Oh, sorry.
God, that would have been a better book, I think.
Yeah, that would have been.
Anyway, so they're writing their important book, and it takes all kinds of time, and it requires a printing press, and so they got that publishing company, and let's see, they roped in a rich oil heir, and let him know that he would be greatly rewarded if he financed her divine efforts. And then she surrounded herself with followers that were mostly women who were required to sell everything they owned and turn over all the proceeds to May and Has Been Hotel.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Huh.
I don't know what Has Been Hotel is.
Okay, we'll have to ask Toast about that.
Yeah, Toast.
I get distracted sometimes.
Sorry, yeah, that's my fault.
So they're building this church. She's got these followers. They're selling all their shit and giving her the money. She's promised that they'd all become future queens of the divine order of the royal arm of the Great 11. Of
course.
See, I told you it was long. But after March of 1925, there's really no mention of the divine order in any of the local papers for like 4.5 years.
Wow. Okay. So they just vanish completely.
They were up to stuff. During that time, they have money coming in from their main financial contributor, who was also the president of the organization, Clifford R. Dabney. He's the one that got mad at May and got a little annoyed at her unfulfilled promises, and she was sucking money from him, but he wasn't getting his divine spiritual information and stuff that he was promised.
I don't feel any better. Maybe I should just keep the dollars.
Gave up almost $50,000 to learn those inner truths and the practical benefits of the stuff. He wanted the jewels.
Yeah, he wanted the jewels, but also this is beginning to sound like Scientology. I don't want to just please don't come after us, but $50,000 and you'll learn all the secrets. Well, I don't feel any smarter, but my bank account's a lot lighter. So, yeah.
Yep. And it was Dabney and then some of the small donors that provided the seed money for the Order's Temple in Ventura County at Mortimer Park. She still dodged him and his demands for spiritual enlightenment and temporal desserts. So he sued her. Put in a complaint with the Los Angeles County District Attorney as well, alleging all kinds of various crimes.
Okay.
That's when the stories started to come out. The media started presenting these wild stories of the divine order's strange rites and rituals that included animal sacrifice, members being baked in ovens to cure them of their maladies. If you crossed her, there was a tendency that you may disappear.
Ooh, that's a little scary.
Numerous people actually did disappear and were never seen again after questioning the heel of God that she called herself.
Oh, shit.
Some people went there and purchased poison. There was rumor of cold storage facilities where the bodies of parishioners were kept, either murdered or otherwise. I am not sure.
Oh, my God.
One of the most shocking things, though, is when the body of Willa Rhodes, who died several years prior and was stored in ice for a long time, May Otis Blackburn talked her followers, who were Willa's parents, into storing her in ice for a period of time and then encasing her in a wood box filled with salt and spices, while 7, the spiritual number 7, dead puppies are buried in separate containers all around her under their house. And all of that was done by Willa Rhodes' father and mother in Venice. Right under the house.
Why dead puppies? Is this like they'll follow you into the afterlife sort of thing, like fucking ancient Egypt, or?
Not exactly sure. Also weird. Not sure that the Willa Rhodes lady died naturally and wasn't a sacrifice.
Well, yeah. It's beginning to lean towards that, really, isn't it, at this point?
Very, very well could have been. But that sensational report came out in the Los Angeles Record, and it said that there was a body found in a remote canyon near Wrightwood in San Gabriel Mountains that was definitely known to be that of Ruth Weiland's long-missing husband. That's one of the people who went missing, Samuel Rizzo. But a couple of days later, they released a little quieter statement that said, oh, that's not Rizzo. That's just some dude who had insurance papers on him and everything, so never mind. But they hyped up all these other charges and reports about those activities, and May was arrested and charged with 15 counts of grand theft.
Okay.
Because they can't prove any of that murder stuff.
No, and I do feel like a part of me, there are a couple of alarms going off in my head when I hear, like, I feel like maybe the police were like, we have an opportunity to pin some of these unsolved things on May here, which has happened a bit in the past with mass murderers and people.
They did seem to make an effort to do that, yes.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning. But yeah, she definitely ain't a good person at this point, for sure.
At the very least, she's a con woman.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That uses the religious stuff, which is actually not even very Christian-based cult stuff. It's more like ancient Egyptian stuff that she was kicking out. But anyway, after all the hype, she's charged based on Dabney's theft. It's grand theft. There's a 6-week trial that takes place in the first part of 1930, and there's more media coverage. The court proceedings go on, though, and they focused almost exclusively on the weird secret teachings and services and rituals and goofy shit that she was involved in.
Yeah.
More than the alleged crime of ripping this dude off of 50 grand and all of her followers with money and stuff.
Yeah, because that shit doesn't sell papers, whereas human sacrifice, fucking pulpy, salacious stuff like that will absolutely shift copy.
Well, that's the thing about it, though. It wasn't just the papers doing that. That's how the trial was being presented. They weren't focusing on any of the crimes or any of that. It was just, this lady's a weird witch person.
You see, if the prosecution's going down that angle, that makes me think that they don't have a huge amount of evidence against them. So, you know, the law should be pretty straightforward, right? You have the evidence, you present it, that's it. You shouldn't have to evoke emotion, really, in situations of financial crime. You know, it's different when it's, you know, murder or something really quite human. But if you're ripping someone off, I feel like you just have to present the evidence of this person. And we'll get into something like that with my guy. But, you know, knowingly taking someone's money and then presenting the methods by which they did it. I don't think you then have to go to, she's a fucking witch. You know, I don't think you have to go down that route. Really.
I think they were going for an easy slam dunk. But the thing is it's going to backfire on them. You'll see in a minute.
Oh. Okay.
So the jury of 8 women and 4 men took 2 days to deliberate on these grand theft charges, and they rendered a verdict of guilty on all 8 counts.
Okay.
So he recovered some of his money.
Good.
But when she was sentenced, the judge decided to issue her a concurrent sentence of 1 to 10 years for all of the accounts. And her lawyer motioned for a new trial, but it was denied.
Okay.
And then they looked for relief in the Court of Appeals. And she was allowed to kind of remain in county jail, and she got out on bond. And the case ultimately went to the California Supreme Court in November of 1931. And the court ruled that the evidence regarding the suspected cult death and disappearances that were introduced by the prosecutor had no bearing on the fraud charges.
No, it
and
doesn't.
It prejudiced the jury against her. So
yes, it did.
Yeah. The court also warned that any legislative attempt to regulate Blackburn's claimed possession of exceptional spiritual power had to be rejected. And that was because it would cause a dangerous invasion into the state into the realm of religious freedom and privilege guaranteed by the Constitution.
Very interesting religious freedom there, and the Constitution coming into play. I don't know whether you call it a good way, but in the way it was intended, right? So... yes, that works for me. And actually, all of that summation that you just read out there, that tracks for me, because I feel like that the sensationalist bullshit should not have been involved at all.
Exactly. Well, I've always been, I guess, weird in that I would rather, like they say, 100 guilty men go free before one innocent man hangs. You know?
Yeah, so absolutely.
Keep it separate, keep it freedom. Let her do her thing there. That has nothing to do with financial crimes. If you want to get her on a death or something related to that, get her on the death or the act. So
if there's negligence involved in the religion, like say if, you know, someone's injured in participating, or if like there is someone gets traumatized by something that they've witnessed in the event, then that's a totally different matter. You don't go after the religion purely because, people are going to get freaked out by that. You know, like you go with the facts, and that's. It bothers me when people go after emotion in trials that don't really need to revolve around it. The evidence should be enough for a solid jury to make their decision on.
Yeah, like this dude gave you $50,000 and you gave him nothing for it.
Yeah, exactly. Give him his fucking money back.
So
end of trial.
Yeah, exactly. But the court goes on and they say that a mentally healthy person such as Clifford Dabney should be responsible for their own decisions to associate themselves with religious orders such as the one created by May Blackburn.
Yeah, I'm less on board with that. That doesn't give her much credit in terms of persuasion.
Yeah.
And, you know, like charismatic people can get anything out of anyone, you know?
It's so scary to me, though, because like I said, I'd rather let everybody just do their own freedom and have personal responsibility. But some people are really good salespeople. Yeah, and sometimes when they believe they're crazy shit, they're really, really convincing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at Alex Jones. I mean, that mistake has cost him $1 billion. Probably because he believed it for a very long time. You know,
I don't necessarily believe in censorship, but if you've got outright proven stuff wrong, like you shouldn't be able to just say lies, just straight up lie.
Exactly, and now we know, because this court ruling with Alex Jones, we're getting a little bit off track here, but that was a message, Right, that $1 billion, that 965 million, whatever it was, that was a message to people. Like, this era of just saying whatever the fuck you wanted with no consequences is over. You can no longer go on YouTube or the internet or wherever and just say anything and get away with it, because people just don't take the internet seriously. Like, that shit is going to cost you money, and he's going to have to declare bankruptcy. There's no way he's got $1 billion. So
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, away from Alex Jones.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole argument.
He's next.
He's next. He's coming. But yeah, I completely think that the court should have given. I guess it's early days of psychology and manipulation and things like that, but you should put weight into someone's ability to extract money from people using confidence.
Right.
You know.
So I'm going to read the court's conclusion in quotes now for everybody's enjoyment. So the court says, we have set forth but briefly disclosures of the record before us, and in our investigation have been unable to see what relevancy the gruesome stories of the preservation of the body of Willa Rhodes in the promise of resurrection could have borne to the issues of whether or not the defendant applied the monies which she received from the complaining witness for the purposes for which they were procured.
Right.
So there's no relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
And as other matters of importance have been properly disposed of, it is the decision of the District Court of Appeal that the judgment and order be reversed. So she's free.
Right. Wow. Completely free.
And then there's insufficient evidence to charge her with any of the crimes for the stuff that they brought up and tried to use to prejudice the jury. So she's free and they're not charging her. But the organization's in decline. And the
Sorry, go on.
The consequences of the negative publicity surrounding it really kind of done them in.
Yeah, that's you're not going to survive a scandal like that. Not in that day and age.
The last effort was that Blackburn published a book, The Origin of God, in 1936, that contains elements from her former proclamations and never made it on any bestseller lists. And then she died June 17th, 1951 in Los Angeles.
Wow, okay.
Should have stayed writing films.
Yeah, I feel like there was a route in there for her, and not having her daughter stripped to make ends meet and shit like that. Like, I feel like if you'd continued down that route, you'd have at least left a mark, a positive mark. But it sounds, I mean, let's play devil's advocate. I genuinely think this woman was a con artist.
Yes.
I feel like we're safe in that assumption. That she definitely extracted money from people that didn't necessarily know who they were getting involved in business with. But as far as the whole murder and human sacrifice, that just feels too salacious to be 100% true. Maybe, because we're talking about, ancient religions here and all sorts of Gnostic practices and all stuff like that. There will have been an element of animal sacrifice in there. And we've just spoken about Alex Jones. Another funny story, and we've spoken about it before, is when he broke into Bohemia Grove with John Ronson. And John Ronson just saw a bunch of wealthy old drunk guys pissing on trees and not having to worry about anyone judging them or letting their secrets out. Like, oh God, I saw this guy piss on a tree. That stock price goes tumbling. They don't have to worry about that. And then they have this ceremony where they have like a whole like esoteric, weird ritual where they're killing burdens, like they're sacrificing burdens and worry and like this effigy is set fire to, and there's like through a loudspeaker it's screaming and they're singing and chanting, and it was like, it clearly wasn't a human. It was made of papier-mâché. Like, that was the problem. Alex Jones saw something very different. He's like, oh my God, they sacrifice people, and oh my God, they murder and sacrifice and Satan and like even like immediately after that, John was like, look, you're lying. I was there. I saw it. You and I are the only two people there, and people are going to take your word on this. So you have to be 100% journalistically honest. And he was like, no, you didn't see what I saw. And actually, that's Alex Jones. He is so in his own world of bullshit and insanity that he believes all this crazy shit. And I feel like when you use the power of those lies, especially if you believe them, it's so influential on people who don't have a level of cynicism to go, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound all right.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Well, and I mean, God, if you're a good storyteller, a lot of shit'll sound
yeah,
true.
it does, and that's the thing. So yeah, I feel like she's a con artist,
Yes.
for sure. Who, like you say, should have stuck to making films, maybe
Right.
moving around in that world. She definitely had a talent for it, a talent for the business as well. And if she just stuck it out in Hollywood for long enough, although the studio system was getting established and it was very cutthroat as well, like even in the early days, like
Oh
even
yeah.
Edison and
And
shit,
nobody
like
down there took
no,
females seriously as far
no.
as like running anything.
No, as anything other than eye candy on screen, they were lit in those perfect 3-point lighting schemes with like Vaseline on the lens, make them shimmer, and all of that. The male gaze and like all of that shit starts coming through. Like you are not going to get taken seriously as a business person in an industry like that back in the
Right.
1920s and 30s. If you're a woman, it just isn't
Right.
going to happen. So I feel like if she could have maybe stayed in Oregon, maybe gone to New York. Potentially, maybe there would have been work for her in the film industry over there because, you know, you're industrializing very quickly in that part of the world, and there's definitely need for video and film stock footage and things like that. And that's definitely a route she could have gone down. But yeah, I feel like Hollywood, with the system being
Yeah.
quite a closed door, would have been difficult. But yeah, definitely con artist, probably not a murderer or a human sacrificer.
Maybe
So
those disappearances,
maybe.
though, they have like the people they never found a body in, in the early
Mm.
1900s, mid 1900s. They're not going to prosecute without a body.
No, no, they're not. And also, I mean, you could say, you know, maybe she disposed of the body, maybe she burned the body, maybe dipped it in acid, whatever. But people do just drop off the map at that time.
Yes.
They just like wander off,
Well, yeah, you can
So
move from California, Los
yeah,
Angeles, California to like somewhere in the Midwest in 1925 and nobody will ever
yeah,
like your former life is gone. It's not like you're calling
yeah,
home or hitting a Zoom meeting or anything.
exactly. Like you could go the next county over, and people might never. You could move to Oxnard. People might never fucking hear from you again. So and that's how the Golden State Killer got away with his crimes for as long as he did. He just kept moving around, and you didn't have connections between different districts and authorities, so they didn't connect the dots until many years
Right.
later. So that the whole kind of like surveillance society is a very modern thing and quite recent, and even now there's easy ways you can escape from that. So yeah, I feel like it's difficult to know because, again, like you said, there's no bodies and stuff. I feel like probably quite a low score with this one because she's a huckster, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially all we can say with any certainty is she's a huckster who was painted into a corner by quite incompetent prosecutors. So I am going to go 75.
That seems fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think she got on a trend at the time. We're talking, the 1920s and the 30s, after the Victorian era, who were they were obsessed with death, the way modern society has been obsessed with sex.
Oh yeah.
Like the whole like, oh my god, seances, and oh, this person could see the future, and like that. And again, going back to Aleister Crowley, it was the era of mysticism, and that kind of hung on for like 20, 30 years after that and became a big part of culture. And she kind of created a religion around that, and that makes sense. But I don't really think anything other than being a con artist like a lot of religious orders were at that time and still are to this day. I think maybe like a 75.
That seems
Because we can't.
fair.
Yeah.
I was trying to look up there while you were giving me my rating and find the movie that they have about it, but I don't know.
All
Look
right.
on IMDb. There's a movie about that story too.
Oh,
Which
there's a
I
whole
still
movie
have to
about
look.
that. Oh, I'm interested. See, I quite like documentaries like that, especially if they've got like a kind of a very specific tone to them. That kind of I definitely want to find
I don't know
out
if it's a
about that movie.
documentary or not, though.
Oh,
It
film,
might be a
that's
fiction
fine.
film about her.
Okay, right. They might have just used it for the basis of basically made by
It
the same
might be
people
the
that did
Blair Witch. I
prosecution.
might have just made that.
It might just be the Blair Witch. Maybe the Blair Witch sequel, which was oh my god.
Oh.
Yeah, we won't go into that. That's a Halloween mistake for the ages. That one. I went to the cinema and I walked out, and I mean, I walked out the first one going, "Is that it? Really?" I was quite scared, but I
Yeah.
wasn't like terrified like the publicity made it seem like I would be.
The messed up thing is I was uneasy and
Mm,
a little freaked out about it because
mm,
everything leading up to it was like, this is real. There was stuff on the History Channel talking about the curse of the Blair Witch. I don't know how they got people to do that. That must be where they spent their budget. Like, hey,
that's where the money went.
Yeah,
the Blair Witch game was awesome from Toastoid. I didn't even know there was a Blair Witch game.
There's a game?
That sounds awesome. Sounds like the kind of thing I'd want.
I need to know more.
Yeah, I played Alien Isolation, and I literally nearly shit myself. So I may not be playing the Blair Witch game. But yeah, the Blair Witch was a thing. The sequel was terrible. We're getting off track, but yeah, that's another cult thing. So we've established that this woman is essentially a con artist. That's kind of what we've landed on. I think,
and she's a solid C idiot.
She's a solid C idiot. She's one of the lower scoring women on this list, along with Elizabeth Bathory, because we can't be 100% sure that shit actually happened. But compared to Elizabeth Holmes, she's certainly much a lower scoring idiot than Elizabeth Holmes. I'll change the world. But from one con artist to another, Tesla said, which are the people who might be making one of the new Silent Hill games? Oh, it's made by Bloober Team. Okay, that'd be interesting. I definitely need to check that out. Actually, that sounds like the kind of game I could get into. That
I think so. Yeah,
managing football teams.
It needs to have a part where I get to make those little wood people and hang them around to scare people. Yeah. That's what I want in the game.
Poke the tent. Just sneaking behind them and pinch the compass or something like that.
If that's an option in the metaverse, I'm doing that to people. I'm going to walk around and poke tents.
That's so funny. Just another thing. Have you ever heard the theory of what actually happened in the Blair Witch Project? That it was all a set. Spoiler alert. That it was all set up by the two guys to just kill the girl, and that they deliberately drove her mad, and one of them disappeared and was behind it all, and they were just doing it as revenge to get back at her. That's a whole theory. Yeah.
No. That's a good theory, though.
It is. And actually, I think you can look it up on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos about it. Actually, when you think about the film and through that lens, it takes on a whole different thing. They wanted revenge on this girl who was dating one of them at one point, and they just wanted to kill her. And they fabricated this whole thing to do it, and they're all in control of it the whole time. When you look at it through that lens, you're like, oh, this becomes a really different film.
Yeah, it's kind of even darker. I mean, that makes it scary again. I was mad at the end of it when I'm like, why are there credits on a found footage movie?
We were so innocent back in the day before found footage was such an overused thing. Oh my God. Within 5 years, everyone was like, oh God, I'm so sick of this shit. When Cloverfield rolled around, we were just like, no, done with it.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity did well, but then
I enjoyed the first 3 Paranormal Activity films, particularly the second and third one. I mean, the first one was great, but I like the way they innovated on the second and third ones. Really enjoyed those.
We're gonna have to do a podcast just on history's greatest awesome movies.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, we can join a long line of other podcasts that talk about awesome films. I think they were hunted down by the Knights of Ni from Monty Python. That scared the shit out of me as a kid. The Knights of Ni. I don't know why. It was hilarious, but I was like, that's fucking terrifying. It was, we demand! The voice was terrifying, and they were fucking huge. Anyway, so from one con artist to another, I would like to tell you today about my con person, Alan Stanford, sports worst con man. You may not know about Alan Stanford. It was a while ago this happened, quite recent, but he is a bigger con artist in terms of prison sentence and money than Bernie Madoff. So, oh yeah, you're gonna get into this one. Yeah, Robert Allen Stanford was born on the 24th of March, 1950. He grew up in Mexia, Texas. His father was James Stanford, was the mayor of Mexia and a founding member of the board of directors of the Stanford Financial Group. His mother, Sammy Nee Con, that's con with 2 N's, not con as in Alan Stanford is a massive con artist. Just con with 2 N's. There you go. Yeah, okay. Was a nurse. His mum was a nurse. After his parents divorced in 1959, so he would have only been 8 or 9 years old at that point, Stanford and his brother went to live with his mother. Stanford graduated from Eastern Hills High School in Fort Worth, Texas in 1974. Stanford graduated from Baylor University in Waco.
I think he missed an opportunity to go to Stanford.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a second. He earned a BA degree in finance, obviously, because his dad's got his own company. It makes sense to go into finance to take over the family business. It's the smart thing to do. I'm not, here for nepotism kids or anything like that. But if you've got an opportunity to take it, really, especially if you've got a skill for it, so why not?
I agree. I don't know. I like the idea of a family business. Makes it
I
easier to
do
figure out what
too.
you want to do.
Yeah, I do. I think there's the ability to be able to learn from people who have raised you and to be able to get a foothold in the world. That's fine as long as you're not like someone who says like Donald Trump, like, "Oh, I came from rags to riches." No, you fucking didn't. You have a $7 million loan from your father who did come from rags to riches.
Right.
So yeah. Stanford started in business in Waco, Texas, opening a bodybuilding gym, probably not frequented by David Koresh, that failed really quickly. Like this thing lasted weeks and it was gone. Bodybuilding
when was this?
gym. This is like the mid 70s, late 70s. So it's right around the time Arnold Schwarzenegger's done Pumping Iron.
Not exactly like a high populated area.
No, I think if he'd gone to California and done that and competed with Gold's Gym, he probably would have been more successful. But Texas, I don't think too many cowboys are like, oh, I want to look like this greased up Austrian guy.
Right.
Tired
Tired after a hard day's work. Why would they want to go to a gym?
I know. Why would they want to pump iron? They've been rounding up cattle all fucking day. His first success in business came from speculating in the real estate market in Houston. After the Texas oil bubble burst in the early 1980s, his father was his partner in the venture. I mean, Texas, as someone who owned property for 30 and still does own property, but was a real estate property developer for 13 years as like a side hustle, I can tell you that being in the real estate business is relatively easy. You are almost always, there's a saying in this country, safe as houses, because in terms of investment, very few things see the growth and returned money that you get from real estate in any sector, really. So I'd imagine if you have a lot of money and you're buying vast swathes of Houston and Texas up, like you're only going to make money. And that's,
God, think if you had mineral rights too.
I know, exactly. And like the oil bubbles burst. So the property market has gone down, but it's the 80s. We're in the Reaganomics era. Things are only going to get better in that part of the world in terms of property value. So sorry, there's a thing here. Most Mexican drug cartels are family businesses. We are actually going to talk about them in a little bit. So this man has connections.
There's a cartel?
There's a cartel involved. I know. It gets really interesting. So they became a big success. The men made a fortune in the 1980s buying up depressed real estate and holding on to it, doing like a little bit of development, but not massive amounts. So they'd be like, they buy an empty lot, turn it into a car park, and they're basically just hanging on to the land, right? Still earning a little bit of money from the car park itself. And then they'd sell it years later because the market recovered in quite a big way, and they made tens/hundreds of millions of dollars by speculating in Texas, which is a very smart thing to do. If you ever have the opportunity to buy up land cheap, just fucking do it, because you're eventually going to make money or just have a lot of lovely land, so just do it.
I've backed out of it so many times. I feel dumb. Eventually.
No. It's not dumb. It's quite a risk because it's a lot of money, isn't it, really? But
it was like 10 grand, but I mean, it's land in the middle of nowhere. So probably wouldn't make me any money until my kids.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like it's one of those things where the land has to be a specific type in a specific area. But if you have an opportunity to get it at cheap and you have the financial ability to do that, it's a smart thing. I bought a house when I was in my, how old was I? In my mid-20s. And, the mortgage was paid off by the time I was 30. And that thing provided an income for me until I sold it very recently to buy this house. And the profit, the money I had made from that bought me a much bigger house in a different part of the country, and then enough money to redevelop it completely. And now this house is worth a lot more. So it's a constant knock-on effect. So, you raise enough money for a deposit on a house, eventually that will turn into, 20 years down the line, like with me, that's going to turn into hundreds of thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever it is. And then that's going to snowball as well.
Yeah.
So It's a wise investment generally.
I went the other way. I bought a big screen instead of a house.
I worked my ass off and nearly killed myself and got into a really bad way personally, but I made a lot of money doing it, so it's like, but no, it wasn't worth it.
I still got my TV.
You still got your TV. It probably still works. My house is in ruins. So they've made a lot of money. In 1993, let's see, James Stanford, the father, retires. So Robert takes over the family business, and at this point, it's grown to such a state that there are 500 employees. At its most successful, the Stanford Financial Group claimed to have clients from 140 different countries with assets of $50 billion under its management. And obviously, they're taking the shrewd thing they did was they took a smaller cut than most financial management companies. But, if you're taking like 6% instead of 7% of $50 billion, that's still a fucking huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In 2001, Stanford said that his great-great-great-grandfather was a relative of Leland Stanford, the founder of Stanford University. There we go. He funded the restoration of Leland Stanford's mansion in Sacramento, California, in an effort to help preserve an important piece of Stanford's family history and hired genealogists to prove he was a member of Leland Stanford's family. And he just went telling everyone that this guy who has got a huge reputation in America for scholastic excellence was like he was related to him, and that actually, that's I'm part of Stanford University. That's me, right? So this like super flamboyant, wealthy guy who. Thing about Robert Allen Stanford, he's really fucking flamboyant with his money and not the kind of guy you would think as studious. Okay. So he's
not
trying
like
to claim
a car that farts perfume flamboyant, though.
No, he's more kind of like big money flamboyant, like Mayweather type flamboyant.
So he's like riding around in the Cadillac stretch limo with big horns on the front of his limo.
Making sure that people know he has money and that he has influence, that sort of thing. Not, I'm a dandy, somebody's stolen my £8 million jewels. Not that, not Lord Penryn flamboyant with his money. This guy's just like a braggadocious kind of new money type of thing. A University of Stanford spokesman said, "We are not aware of any genealogical relationship between Allen Stanford and Leland Stanford. In 2008, the university filed a trademark infringement suit against Stanford, claiming the school's name was being used in a way that creates public confusion and is injurious. Stanford smartly backed down, that Allen Stanford, not Stanford University, backed down at this point because he's making a lot of money. He's managing huge amounts of money for very wealthy and influential people, some of whom were educated at Stanford or in like connected Ivy Leagues. And he doesn't want to piss off wealthy people who might be able to, give him an in with the money, basically. So he does the smart thing, and it's the last time he does it. He does the smart thing, and he backs down, and he's like, whatever, maybe I'm not connected to Stanford. Maybe I was just making it up for a bit of headlines. That's fine. On November the 1st, 2006, Stanford... So this is his first brush with the legal system, but he does the smart thing. He's like, whatever, dude, that's your whole thing. On the 1st of November, 2006, Stanford was appointed Knight Commander of the Order of the Nation of Antigua and Barbuda by the... that should be Barbados, I'd imagine, by the Antiguan government. Prince Edward, not the controversial one, the less controversial one. So you got Charles, King, then you got his brother, who we all know about at this point, and then you got Edward, who's like sort of there, and I'm the third one, sort of thing, He's the Earl of Wessex. I don't even know where the fuck Wessex is, so I can't
cool
help
name
you with that. Yeah, it is. It's got sex in there and West. So Earl of Wessex joined the Governor General of Antigua and Barbuda. Why do I have such trouble with that? Sir James Carlisle, to make this announcement during the Silver Jubilee Independence Day celebration for the Queen. So after being knighted, Stanford was awarded the title Sir Allen Often he was generally referred to as such by other Antiguans and international dignitaries. There is nothing like giving a man who has a massive ego and delusions of grandeur a really formal title like Sir. And also, like, it wasn't the Queen who knighted him, or who gave him it, because normally there's this whole sequence of events. Unless you've made a massive contribution, there's like you get an OBE, and then an MBE, and then a CBE. It's like different.
That's a lot of letters, man.
That's a lot of letters. So like David Beckham is an MBE because of his contributions to sports. Or like I'm trying to think of someone else who's an MBE. Anyone who's a Sir, like Sir Ian McKellen, will have been like OBE, CBE, and it'll be contributions to dramatic arts or something.
What's Bond?
Daniel Craig. Yeah. Sir Daniel Craig for contributions to dramatic art. So sometimes they don't have to go through that whole thing of like OBE, CBE. They can just be like, you're so fucking famous, ego. You're a knight of the realm now. If anyone ever tries to kill the queen, you have to jump in to save her. So you're still an actual feudal knight, but like no one's gonna like call you to fucking arms to defend the queen. You can still stay in Hollywood in your giant mansion and be fine. So
I want to be a knight though.
I know, I do too. Like, and there's a thing in this country as well. If you donate enough blood, you can actually get an OBE. If you donate like a certain amount of blood, you automatically get an OBE. That's never going to happen because I have massive iron deficiencies. So I'm never donating blood because I need all my shit. So
you need blood.
You do need blood, especially at the rate I lose it. So basically you can get an OBE that way, but you know, you might just be really like, might bow down in front of the king, like, oh, how much blood have you donated? Like, please just give it to me before I collapse.
Does it have to be my blood?
Does it have to be my blood? Can you just harvest it from random pigs? Does it have to be blood? No, spit. I'm sure they'll take spit as well, you know, just like really help with the wiping of hands. Yeah, I'm joking. So Antigua have given him this knighthood, which I'm sure the royals aren't particularly keen of, but it's a thing that happens apparently. I wasn't aware of it, but that kind of helped his ego. By 2008, Stanford was one of the richest men in America, worth an estimated $2.2 billion, and living an extravagant jet-setting lifestyle in which he enjoyed power and privilege. According to reports, in 1 3-year period alone, Stanford spent $100 million on aircraft, which included helicopters and private Learjets. He got a G6 or 2.
That seems like a legitimate expense, though, because I mean, that other dude spent like $8 million on underwear.
I know, and like a fucking car that farts, you know, like I feel like, yeah, you can, the majority of the stuff he's investing in, Learjets and shit like that, you could probably write off a fair chunk of that on tax. Less so, well, maybe helicopters as well, maybe more so helicopters. But he also spent, this week you couldn't get on tax. He even spent $12 million lengthening his yacht by 6 feet.
That feels like such a phallic issue.
The first joke that came into my head, and I've written it down here, it's not the size, it's the motion in the ocean. It's such low-hanging fruit. I swear to God.
You got it.
But I know that there's like a rule in luxury yachts worlds where like every meter in length of the yacht is $10 million or something like that. I think it's either 10 million. Yeah, I think that may have been a while ago now. But every yard meter you build is $10 million. So if you're or maybe it's $1 million. So maybe if your thing's like 100 meters long, then it's $100 million sort of thing. And then if you stack another level on top, that's another $100 million. And
then you can ask countries to take down bridges just for you to get in places.
I know. How crazy is that shit? That's amazing. That kind of fucking power is amazing.
See, but you're saying he's the second richest dude in America at like 2.3 billion in 2008.
At the time, one of the richest. Doesn't say second, but he's got 2.2 billion. So like he's probably this is 2008, obviously financial disaster. He's still making a shitload of money. So I'd imagine he's probably like top 30. You know,
he's got Kylie Jenner money.
Yeah, he's got like, I've started my own line of cosmetics. I'm a self-made billionaire. You're not. You're not a self-made billionaire. I love that self-made billionaire thing. Nobody is ever a self-made billionaire. They've made it off the backs of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So
usually, I think you have to.
There has to be a certain level of exploitation.
Yeah, a little bit to get to that level.
Exactly. Nobody gets to billionaire status without like fucking over at least 100 people. You know,
I would agree with that.
Or something. Yeah. So he's extended his yacht by 6 foot. And now let's get to so at this point, right? Other than the flamboyant spending of money, which again we talked about, you can probably get a lot of it on tax. This is a reasonably okay thing, right? He's just a billionaire being a billionaire at this point, for the most part. We don't really know a lot about his business, and now we're about to find out one of the reasons he's more infamous in the UK than most other parts of the world. Stanford created and funded the Stanford 2020 cricket tournament in the West Indies, for which he built his own ground in Antigua. The first Stanford 2020 cricket tournament was held in July and August 2006, where Guyana took first place, defeating Trinidad and Tobago in the final. Just a bit of a thing about cricket. Cricket is huge in certain parts of the world, in like the Caribbean, in India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, England, some other countries as well. It's huge. And the 2020 form of the game is really interesting because traditional cricket is called test match cricket, which goes on literally for 5 days. It is
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. So one match will last 5 days, and each team. Do
you stop for like cookie breaks and shit? Or?
Oh yeah, no, they stop for tea, they stop for lunch, they stop for dinner, they stop for bad light, they stop for rain, they stop for fucking everything. I swear to God. So it's like it's test cricket is almost always played in the summer because it's the only way you can guarantee decent weather and like the amount of time you need for it. And basically you play until one team has won and accumulated the most runs they can get in 2 lots of 50 overs. And an over is 6 bowls. So you bowl the ball 6 times. You get as many people out or as many runs, the opposition team, as you can in that, and that's an over, and then you swap sides, and then 49 more to go for the day.
So and bowling is like pitching.
Yeah, kinda. Basically. Only slower because they have a run up. So they get the ball. They do the weird thing, and like, it might spin, it might be fast, it might be a full length, it might be half. It's cricket's so fucking stupid.
It looks interesting, confusing as hell.
It really is. And actually, I'm fascinated with it in a similar way that I am with baseball, in that I understand cricket more because I've been to a few matches, and holy shit, never again. But like, there's something appeals to me, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because it's complicated or because it's like a slower pace game, and you've got a lot of interesting statistics and tactics involved in it. Which I quite like because it's unusual tactics that you don't think, oh wow, there's a plan for this. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So do they stop for sex or smokes? Shane Warne did. He passed away recently. So yeah, Google Shane Warne. That guy was crazy. Dating Liz Hurley. This random fucking Australian cricketer was dating Liz Hurley for decades. Anyway, so back to cricket. It's weird. The 2020 form of cricket is like a shortened version. You have 20 overs each. You don't have more. You have one inning instead of like you have 50 overs, then we have 50 overs, then you have 50 overs, and then we have 50 overs. And after that time, in 5 days, whoever scored the most is the winner. This is 20 overs each once. Okay. So
that's it.
That's it. You get as many runs as you can. And it's really interesting because it's usually faster as well. It happens in like maybe 3 hours. This game takes so much shorter period of time, and like the last 3 overs of the 2020 cricket, these cricketers are just trying to get as many points as possible. So they are taking ridiculous risks. They're trying to smash this fucking ball all over the place, because if you hit it over the boundary without it bouncing, you get 6 runs. If it rolls along the floor and hits the boundary, you get 4. And obviously you can hit it towards a fielder and try and run and get as many runs as possible. It's essentially baseball, right? But obviously you get more points if you hit it over the boundary than you do in baseball. But yeah,
right.
So 2020 cricket is really popular because it's faster paced. It can be played at night, so there's a bit more of a party atmosphere because they've got floodlights on. And
Okay.
there's a lot more booze around. Not that people don't drink at cricket anyway, but yeah, he funds this tournament, and the first one's won by Guyana, who South American nation.
Okay.
So that must have been very popular. The first tournament's kind of like a trial run to see if it'll work, and it does to a certain extent because it's very popular. The second tournament took place in January and February of 2008 with a global television audience of 300 million people.
Damn.
So that's a shit.
And
this is the second tournament. I know. It's like a fair chunk of the planet at that point is watching this random cricket tournament. And for a second installment, that's a big leap in popularity.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, that really is. And Trinidad and Tobago took first place this time. And they were awarded $280,000 of the Stanford Super Series prize after defeating Middlesex, who are an English cricket club, on the October 27, 2008. Now, for an audience of $300 million people, that seems like an incredibly low payout.
That's what I was going to say.
That kind of audience. Yeah, that's and a cricket team, by the way, it's like the same amount of people as a baseball team. So and then you've got the staff, you've got the treatment, you've got the travel. 40. Yeah, you're looking at like 40, 50 people. That's not a lot of money. You got to get them there. I mean, I guess a lot of this is paid for by sponsorship and shit like that, but you'd want that per player, right?
Kind of
prize money.
Yeah, it's like the local band level money of
it really is
sports
at that point.
So like, split this door between the five of you. Here's $100.
yeah, and here's some money off at bloody Subway. Go and enjoy yourself, sort of thing. Isn't Guyana where Jamestown was? Yes, it is. That's where. Sorry,
that's what I was trying to get in my head. If you saw me zone out when you said that.
Yeah, that's where Jim Jones went and made his Kool-Aid batch. In 2008, June 2008, Stanford and the England and Wales Cricket Board, the ECB, signed a deal for 5 2020 internationals between England and the West Indies All-Star 11, combined nations of the West Indies, like the Caribbean, get together, form one All-Star team, go up against England. Total prize money for this one, £12.27 million, around $20 million. So that's significantly more than the second tournament, to be awarded to the team that won, and like the losers get half. So you're still making a shitload of money, right? So, it was the largest ever prize offered to a team for a single tournament. This was in jeopardy after a row with Digicel, the sponsors of the West Indies cricket team, who were unhappy about other sponsors being at the event. But Alan, I keep forgetting his name, Alan Stanford, amazingly managed to iron all this out because he wanted this to be a big success. So he smoothed everything out, no drop in prize money, and eventually it was won by the Stanford Superstars, the West Indies 11 All-Stars. They won by 10 wickets. Don't ask me to explain cricket, but that's a pretty big win. So they earned their $20 million. And like $20 million, you're like, okay, that's set for life money in cricket, because cricketers are not particularly well paid because it's not like a massive sport. It's more so now, but like the average wage for your high level cricketer for a very long time would max out at around about like £100,000 a year. So like good normal money, like if you were in a job that was on £100,000, you're like, oh my god, this is great, I'm going to be able to retire so early. But like as a professional athlete, that's not a huge amount of money. You've got a 10-year window to pay that. So
I would be really, really happy to get paid to play a game.
Oh fuck yeah.
And I would be really, really happy to get paid to work out and play a game.
Yeah, me too. Like I got a reason to go to the gym instead of like wanting to not die young. Sure, give me that money. Stanford also owned 2 newspapers in Antigua and Barbuda and St. Kitts and Nevis, both called the Sun. They folded in they folded in 2010 for reasons we'll get into shortly. Stanford also owned the Maiden Islands in Antigua and Barbuda. So we'll get into that now. Maiden Islands is the site of the largest coral reef restoration project performed with designed artificial reefs called reef balls. In 2004, approximately 3,500 prefabricated reef modules were deployed on all sides of the island, but the primary reef was created on the windward side where they were going to get blasted by, really powerful winds, and was heavily planted with propagated and rescued coral and other marine life. There were more than 10,000 propagated coral fragments planted on the reef by the Reef Ball Foundation, a public non-profit NGO that does reef restoration work around the world. And since then, that island has become a huge habitat for sea life and stuff like that. And a lot of that is down to Alan Stanford. So good for him for getting in like the help he could in this area, because actually that's the destruction of coral reefs is a huge problem for the oceans, particularly the Great Barrier Reef. So far, this guy's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, other than wanting to be bigger than he is and stuff. Yeah. I think.
Other than leaning into the Sir part and the...
being a little douchey.
Some of the billionaire behavior, which I kind of feel like I might get sucked into if I had that kind of money. Like, $12 million to make my ship a bit bigger. Why not? I need an extra bathroom. Why not? I can have an ensuite, right? I think it would probably be that stupid. But we're about to get to the reasons why he's here in the first place. Okay. The FBI and other agencies investigated Stanford starting in 2008 for possible involvement in money laundering for Mexico's Gulf cartel. According to the New York Times, Stanford once held a Cook Islands trust called Baby Mama, which with his mistress and 2 children as beneficiaries. That's so stupid, dude.
He named it Baby Mama.
I know. He called it Baby Mama, right? In 2 sentences, we've gone from this guy formed coral reefs, he funded cricket tournaments, to the FBI are investigating drug cartel money, Cook Trust called Baby Mama with his mistress and 2 children. It's like, wow, in 2 sentences, this guy has gone really down in everyone's estimations. So.
He got into the family business with the cartels.
He really did, apparently. Yeah, it's starting to sound, money laundering. The trust protected proceeds deposited into Swiss and Isle of Man bank accounts from the sale of a $2.5 million Florida home. So he's laundered money, right? That's nobody has a Swiss bank account or an Isle of Man bank account unless you're laundering money. It's basically turned into an episode of Ozark at this point. Like, oh my god, we need to launder cartel money. How are we going to do that? Yeah, I'll set up a cricket league. That's no one will suspect a thing. We'll just get the money out that way. Everyone likes cricket, right? We'll just put the money there.
I never would have suspected a thing. It's brilliant.
No. It's so funny. The United States Court of Appeal. Have I skipped over? No. The United States Courts of Appeal for the Fifth Circuit affirmed much of the United States tax court's ruling, found that Stanford and his wife Susan, not his mistress, underreported their 1990 federal taxes to the tune of $423,531.36. That's just for 1 year between the 2 of them. So
hey, it's not like it was. Never mind. I wasn't going to get into the other guy from Florida that overclaimed shit.
Yeah. The Florida seems to be the ground zero for a lot of kind of crazy shit in your country.
It is. Well, I mean, the whole thing looks like a penis, so
yeah, it makes sense that people go a bit mad in country's penis. But yeah, so he's got a federal tax thing lingering over his head in 2008. Public records suggest that Stanford actually owed hundreds of millions of dollars in federal taxes. There are 4 federal tax liens from 2007 and 2008 against Stanford, totaling more than $212 million.
Jesus.
That's 20 Nicolas Cages. That's a shitload of money.
That's a big debt.
That's 30 Wesley Snipes.
That's 30.
That's a lot.
How many Willie Nelsons is it?
How many Willie? That's got to be like 40 Willie Nelsons. Oh my god. That's all. I mean, 212 million. It shows the kind of money this guy was making to owe that kind of tax money. Because creative accounting would have got that down anyway, right?
It should.
So yeah. I mean, Christ, I know accountants that could get my taxes down. So why the hell $212 million in back taxes?
He would have had to have made a shit ton to owe that much.
And we'll get into how he did that right now. Reports surfaced in early 2009 that the SEC, the FBI, the Florida Office of Financial Regulation, which is just like one dude in a Hawaiian shirt or something, and the Financial Industry Regulation Authority, a major U.S. private sector oversight body, were investigating Stanford Financial Group, questioning the consistently higher than market returns which Stanford International Bank claimed to make for its depositors. This is starting to sound a little familiar, isn't it?
It is, a little bit.
A former executive told SEC officials that Stanford presented hypothetical investment results as actual historical data in sales pitches to clients. He's literally making this shit up, and they're like, "Ooh, all right." Stanford claimed his certificates of deposits were as safe or safer than the U.S. government insured accounts. A leaked cable message from the U.S. Embassy in the Bahamas reported as early as 2006, which was when he was made a sir, that companies under Stanford's control were rumored to engage in bribery, money laundering, and political manipulation. The U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas at the time was reported to have managed to stay out of one-on-one photos with Stanford during a charity breakfast event because he was so worried about the destruction of his reputation by being pictured with this guy. This is 2006.
Okay. And so, then the cricket thing's 2008?
Yep. So at this point, he's already like, this guy's a bit fucking shifty. Maybe we should stay away from him. No, he's giving us shitloads of money. Federal agents raided the offices of Stanford Financial on February 17th. I was going to say 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, 2009, and treated it as a kind of crime scene, cautioning people not to leave fingerprints. Fuck me. The SEC charged Stanford with massive ongoing fraud. I love that they had to, like, it's not just fraud, it's massive fraud.
Not a little bit.
No, quite a lot. Canted on an $8 billion investment scheme. Stanford's assets, along with those of his company, were frozen and placed into receivership by U.S. federal judge who ordered Stanford to surrender his passport. Around about this time, Stanford and Baldwin Spencer, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and a former ally, began verbally feuding in public over the scandal. Both of them pointing fingers at each other, going, "You fucking knew more than you're letting on." And then they go, "Yeah, well, you fucking knew way more than I fucking did." So it's like, why would you do this? You're already under investigation by the SEC, the FBI, fucking the government, tax people, and you're like, I'm just going to piss off the prime minister of a country now.
Yeah, so, I don't have enough trouble.
Nah, I'm just going to kick up some more dirt. So CNBC reported that Stanford tried to flee the country on the same day as the raids on his headquarters. He contacted a private jet owner and attempted to pay for a flight to Antigua with a credit card, but was refused because the company would only accept a wire transfer. "I've got a signed cricket bat. Will you take that? Please, just put me on a fucking plane."
He's bartering his way out.
Yeah, please, I'll do anything. Wire transfer. No, I haven't got any assets. Just take this. On February 19th, acting at the request of the SEC, FBI agents located Stanford at his girlfriend's house.
Oh, at the baby mama's place.
Yeah, there it is. That's where the money's going. In Fredericksburg, Virginia. Wow, he fucking made off, didn't he? And served him with civil legal papers filed by the SEC. The SEC often files civil charges before criminal charges are filed. Stanford was arrested on June 18th, 2009. He surrendered his passport to federal prosecutors and hired criminal defense lawyer Brendan Sullivan, who had also represented Ollie North. The man who sold arms to Iran, allegedly for drug money. He was just, he was a patsy who ended up working for Fox News. So yeah, he's like, will you take some of the time away from me, Ollie, and I'll make sure you get an anchor job. Okay, President. Okay, so various governments took over Stanford's business operations. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank announced that it had taken over the local operations of the Bank of Antigua, which was renamed Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank. Why would you call it that? It's so hard to read.
Right.
The Venezuelan government took over Stanford Bank Venezuela, the branch of Stanford's bank in the nation. Now, I'm sorry, but if you've got a bank of your own in Venezuela, then there's something very weird going on, right? Because that country has not been exactly what you'll call a bastion of financial security for the last 30 years. What are you doing?
I feel
it's a communist nation.
I feel like if you own a bank in Venezuela and you're not Venezuelan, you might be up to something.
Yeah, maybe move it to Panama where it's slightly less suspicious. No. On the 27th of February 2009, the SEC said that Stanford and his accomplices operated a massive Ponzi scheme. There it is. We all knew it was coming. Misappropriated billions of dollars of investors' money and falsifying the Stanford International Bank's records to hide their fraud. Stanford International Bank's financial statements included its investment income are fictional, the SEC have said. In an interview on April 20th at the law offices of Houston criminal attorney Dick DeGuerin, that's definitely someone's porn name, Stanford denied any Dick DeGuerin. Stanford denied any wrongdoing. His companies had been well run, he claimed, until the SEC disemboweled them, which is a really odd choice of words in this situation.
Yeah, I guess. Rip their guts right out.
I guess so. Yeah, that makes sense. But blaming the SEC, they only come in at a certain point, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I was doing really good until they fucking caught me.
Exactly. I was stealing quite happily. On June 18th, 2009, Stanford was taken into custody by FBI agents. On the 25th of June, 2009, he appeared in a Houston court and pleaded not guilty to charges of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. On the 27th of August, 2009, Stanford was admitted into the Conroe, Texas Regional Medical Center. He complained of a racing heart while being transported from the private prison in Huntsville, Texas, to the federal courthouse in Houston to attend a hearing concerning his attorney, Dick DeGuerin, who had asked the court for permission to withdraw from Stanford's case. Wow, even the porn star lawyer doesn't want to be involved in this shit.
Dick's out.
Dick's out. Dick DeGuerin out. And yeah, so he's doing the this is what every criminal does, right? When they get arrested, like, oh my heart. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And they go to the hospital and 8 hours later they're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with him.
See, I'm hoping his cartel connections come in here on the way to the hospital.
Bust him out, Grand Theft Auto style. Oh my god. Robert Luskin of Patton Boggs, which had been representing Stanford in a simultaneous civil case, was to be lead counsel. On the 26th of September 2009, Stanford was hospitalized again, this time due to injuries sustained while being severely beaten, I shouldn't laugh about this, by another inmate in the Cornell Company's operated Joe Corley detention facility in Conroe. His injuries were described as non-life-threatening, probably because he was like, give me your fucking tater tots, give me your fucking gravy, give me your biscuits. It's like, no, these are mine. And then boom, fucking beaten down. Someone called him a bitch in prison, right? And he just like, you can't take that. You have to get in a fight now. Because if you're called a bitch and you don't step up, you're just a bitch for life then. So,
well, then he got his ass beat.
This fucking 60-year-old man stepping up to hardened criminals. In October 2009, the National Honors Committee in Antigua voted unanimously to strip Stanford of his knighthood. What the fuck were they doing giving it to him in the first place? On the 2nd of November 2009, the recommendation was forwarded to the Governor General, Dame Louise Laketack. The order to revoke Stanford's knighthood and insignia was approved and was served upon Stanford on April 1st, 2010, while he was in prison, recovering from injuries. So you've got your ass beaten, but at least you've lost your title.
I got two things. You can avoid getting your ass beaten in prison.
Yeah.
Real easy. It's one step.
Yeah.
Don't run a Ponzi scheme and go to prison.
Don't steal money from people. They don't like you. Did you hear about what happened to Bernie Madoff when he got into prison? This is really weird, right? The thing with Bernie Madoff and it's hard to believe given how much money he's stolen. He's a really likable guy, apparently. Like, people just genuinely like being around him, except his kids who fucking hated him. But he got into prison and made friends with all of these inmates and started giving them financial advice, a lot of which they took, and it was a whole weird thing. But one of the first things he did when he got into prison in America was he bought up every single packet of ramen noodles that he could on the canteen there, and he sold it to other inmates at twice the price it would have been had they bought it from the store.
Yeah, he ran his commissary
own
hustle.
In jail hustle. I mean, I kind of feel like if people like you, you shouldn't be doing shit like that. Like, you're in prison, right? The best thing to do is to kind of curry favor with people.
That is how you do it right there. If you're running the inside commissary like he was, I'm imagining he's the dude that's the guy to get things from.
Exactly.
So obviously they like him whether they want to like him or not.
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't considered that. That's like, he controls it, so therefore we have to be nice to him. Sort of thing. That's a smart move. Yeah. He's in club fed, and while it's supposed to be easier, I'd imagine he's still concerned for his safety. So if he makes himself important, then he's less likely to get beaten up or stabbed or something like that. The hustle never ends. Indeed, Toasterzoid. It just never, ever stops. So in March 2010, have I skipped over here? No, I haven't. In March 2010, the SEC Inspector General H. David Kotz issued a report finding that the SEC had failed to uncover the Ponzi scheme perpetrated by Stanford because of concerns raised by former SEC Chief Investigator David P. Weber of improper conduct by Kotz. Investigator General David C. Williams of the U.S. Postal Service was brought in to conduct an independent review. The Williams report found that Kotz himself appeared to have a conflict of interest because he had a personal relationship with an attorney representing Stanford's victims.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. The guy brought in to investigate this whole thing was banging one of the opposition counsels. So,
okay.
That's not good. Don't sleep
I bet
with
it
the
could
people.
go her way.
Yeah.
That's
not a good decision. Don't sleep with your opposing counsel or people who are on the wrong side of you. It's always going to end up going bad.
It's all Romeo and Juliet right there.
It is. Yeah, it's so romantic. Involving massive fraud. Stanford's trial date was set for January 2011. The district judge deemed that Stanford's anti-anxiety drug addiction impaired his judgment and therefore made him unfit to stand trial. I didn't know you could get hooked on anti-anxiety drugs. I just thought that they made you sleepy.
The benzos, really? Yeah, benzos are really bad.
Oh, of course, benzodiazepine. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure. Stanford was incarcerated at the Federal Detention Center in Houston. In February 2011, Stanford issued a counterclaim of $7.2 billion of damages against the FBI and the SEC. Good luck with that one, buddy. I was trying to see the government there. I don't think that's going to go well. In May, prosecutors dropped 7 charges against Stanford, leaving only 14. So walk in the park.
Way
there.
less.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll get off scot-free. That's fine. It's 21 down to 14. In November 5, 2011, Stanford was being held at the Federal Medical Center at the Federal Correctional Complex Butner in Butner, North Carolina. This guy's gone all over the fucking country at this point. Different prisons. It's kind of crazy.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to travel, but the accommodations aren't so good.
Yeah, the food is severely lacking. His attorneys claim that Stanford was unfit to stand trial. Get this. Due to amnesia resulting from the injury sustained when he was attacked over the tater tots or whatever the fuck it was. They're trying soap opera storylines now.
Right. He fell off his horse and he had to get a brain transplant from Susan.
And his evil twin gave him his liver and it had rabies. And then, oh my God, this is hilarious. Amnesia. Come on. On December 22nd, 2011, happy Christmas. He's found guilty. He's found competent, to stand trial. That comes later. U.S. District Attorney David Hittner put that through. The trial began on January the 24th, 2012. Man, they didn't hang around. It's normally like they set a date and it's like way down the line, right? Like months, and then there's continuations. So it can take years
right
for this shit to go through.
no, didn't waive his right to a speedy trial. He just went after it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, please don't take me to trial. I'm fucked.
Hurry up and get my ass beat.
Yeah, I'm always in hospital. I don't like it here. At the Houston Federal Courthouse, Judge Hittner presiding. It started on January 24th. On March 6th, after 3 hours of deliberation, so a month and a half after the start of the trial, the jury convicted him of masterminding a Ponzi scheme. Prosecutors sought a sentence of 230 years in prison. The maximum. I know. That's kind of crazy.
That's a lot of years.
That's a lot of lifetimes right there. Tolstoy said a brick fell on his head and now he can only speak and understand Spanish. I like that storyline. There you go. Yes. In a coma for a season so that they can do some contract negotiations. Prosecutors sought 230 years in prison, the maximum permitted by law, and 80 more years than the 150-year sentence handed to Bernie Madoff. Calling him a ruthless predator who lived a life steeped in deceit. I mean, yeah. Stanford's lawyers pressed for a sentence of 31 to 44 months and a maximum of 10 years. The former sentence, with credit for time served, would have seen him walk out of prison without further jail time and random beatings at the hands of psychopaths. I don't think 31 months is enough for like $212 million of fraud.
That's like the range is like,
it's so massive. I know. We're talking
31 months or 230 years, whichever comes first.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can either go to prison for and miss a season of Game of Thrones, or you can go to prison and be released when democracy's finished. You know, it's like such a massive difference in time. It's kind of like when you're talking to the police, like say you've been robbed or something, and they're like, "How tall was the offender?" Well, they were between 3'8" and 9 foot tall. Like it just that's not helpful at all. According to Peter Henning of the New York Times, judges have been more willing to impose sentences for financial fraudsters that effectively amount to life sentences in recent years. The extent to which such frauds wreck people's lives, Henning wrote, amounts to economic homicide. I completely agree with this point, and such outsized sentences are a way to express society's anger at such conduct. I agree. Because this doesn't just ruin people's lives, it ruins generations. It ruins families for generations to come.
It does.
They never recover from that shit.
For real. And that's one of the things that I was thinking about life-wise is like financial crimes, murder, and the other one that I don't want to say. Assault.
Yeah, assault. There we go. Okay.
Of an unfortunate nature.
Yeah. Okay.
I think those are the base crimes right there, and I think financial crimes are just as bad as the other two.
I know. I think because there's like historically there's less emotion attached to financial crimes, and it's seen as like white collar crime, and it's less salacious, so people take it kind of less seriously for some reason. So.
I think you don't see it as much too. The fact that there's 300 families that now are going to have drug addicts and alcoholics that are driving around killing people on the roads. And, just it's a trickle-down effect.
It is a massive trickle-down effect, far more so than something like murder or, other crimes, because that affects, I mean, obviously those are terrible crimes and they affect specific people a huge amount and stuff. But when you bankrupt people and ruin dozens of people financially and steal money from them, they can turn to drugs, they can turn to violence, they can steal, they can go bankrupt, they can die, they can have their lives significantly shortened. Other people who rely on them for money, businesses go out, other people lose their jobs. The knock-on effects can be globally huge.
Yes,
as we found with Bernie Madoff. There are people who are still trying to recover from that today. Hundreds of people worldwide were robbed by this guy. So I agree that actually there should be higher sentences for financial crimes and actually far more scrutiny to stop them from happening in the first place. But on June 14th, 2012, Stanford was sentenced to 110 years in prison. Yeah, although it's less than half the sentence sought by prosecutors, it ensures that he will obviously spend the rest of his life in prison. It would be really funny if it didn't. If he came out in 110 years' time, it's like, nice to be back out again.
Well,
like,
if that happened, yeah,
we have other concerns. Then he may be supernatural.
It's a totally different primetime show than the soap opera show.
Yeah. True Blood becomes a very different show if it's involving financial crime. The judge also ordered Stanford to forfeit $5.9 billion, saying that Stanford had orchestrated, one of the most egregious frauds ever presented to a trial jury in federal court. At sentencing, Stanford spoke for the first time in the proceedings. He dodged being on the stand because, he probably try and grass someone up and get beaten up in prison again, denying that he had ever swindled anyone. And he blamed his company's failure on the Gestapo tactics of government regulators. The government made me steal.
Oh, God. That sounds so familiar. There's like somebody I feel like having the same problems.
Yeah. It was the government's fault. Yeah.
The government's fault that I did things that are illegal.
Yeah, that I took sensitive information. Yeah, supernatural con artist. Yeah, that we should pitch that. Netflix. Hey, we've got a show for you. So at sentencing, so he said that the government is responsible. He's incarcerated at Coleman 2 USP in Sumterville, Florida. His earliest possible release date is March 13th, 2103. At which time he would be 152 years old.
And Duck Dodgers is running amok in 2103.
Yeah, my God. He gets out at 20. He gets out in 2103, 152 years old. They're going to have to look into what they've been feeding him in prison because he's Coleman 2 USP. That's not going to be like a minimum security, is it? Because it's a financial crime. So
it might be
Martha Stewart. Like it might be.
It's a U.S. prison. I don't know. USP that's all that is. It's not a Supermax. I don't think.
No, he's not gone to Colorado or anything like that, like the Supermax that they've got there. But yeah, like I remember when Martha Stewart went to prison and they had like the fucking prison had like a spa and all sorts of shit on there. So yeah, it was a bit light on the punishment. She got away.
It's a high security United States penitentiary.
Right. So it's no walk in the park. It's still razor wire and beatings. So,
maybe it says level 1. I don't know.
Level 1. All right. Yeah. So standard prison for this guy. But if he's smart enough, he'll buy up all the ramen and he'll be set for life. On April 26th, 2013, federal district judge David Godby sided with the SEC in its civil suit against Stanford and ordered him to disgorge, nice word, $6.7 billion in illegal profits and $861 million in interest alone, and pay $5.9 billion in fines. He was permanently barred from the securities industry. I don't think that's going to be an issue where he's going. Godby wrote that Stanford had carried out the fraud for over a decade with a high degree of scienter, that's knowledge of what you were doing and that it was illegal. Stanford filed a 299-page brief in September 2014 with the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans on his conviction. The appeal was rejected in October 2015. I would have loved to have read those 299 pages. I bet they're full of amnesia and the government did it. And do you want this cricket bat if you let me out? Sort of thing.
It can't be any worse than Timothy Dexter's book that was just punctuations and spaces.
Yeah, just like,
although that would be cool.
It's all the Jewish people's fault.
Not me.
It's like a Kanye West tweet. Yeah, that's the story of Alan Stanford, currently serving. I mean, he might be out soon. He's only got like 80 odd years to wait. So hang in there, Alan. We believe in you.
I think the question that comes to mind though is, did they take his boat?
I would hope so. The thing is, right? Do you take all of the boat Or do you leave him the 6 feet that he added on afterwards? Because that might not be on the original like blue slip, right? That might not be part of the original purchase. So he's like, that's mine. That came out of my pocket. Leave me that 6 feet. That's where I'm going to live when I get out. It's got an ensuite.
Well,
so
that's what I was going to say. They ordered him to give all this money. Like, give it all. He's going to be in prison.
Yeah, what's he going to do with it? It's not like
I guess you'd give some to his baby mama and the kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've already got their own private fund, I think, haven't they? Call baby mama. But yeah, like, have you the Bernie Madoff's ex-wife, who divorced him like immediately when all of this shit came out, is living in like, how would you put it? Kind of like significantly worse off than she was when she was with him, right? But like, she is still living in a like 2-bedroom apartment somewhere. I can't remember where it was. I think it might have been Florida as well, or I might just be imagining that. But she is okay. She can't work, but because of like certain things, she still has a stipend that comes in that allows her to live at a certain level.
2,200 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, though.
Sort of thing, yeah. Like you might have access to a communal garden, sort of thing. So
yeah. I guess I don't know. This guy sucks.
Yeah,
he's like that really payday loan guy too. That came and took all this shit and sent him to jail. And he's like, "It wasn't my fault. Those people should have been smarter."
Yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't my fault if you were stupid enough to get invested in my scheme that I sold you on. So yeah, I don't like Alan Stanford at all.
Well, one of the things that popped up to me is he was doing cricket tournaments, right?
Yeah,
and that's really popular in India and Pakistan. And I don't understand. He knew this is coming. He's got all of this money. He's got connections to move around in those areas. Why doesn't he do like that one dude that did cryptocurrency, disappear, fake his death? There's a big industry in India right around that same time with faking your death.
Exactly. And we'll hopefully get to that guy, because I still think there's a story there. I still think that guy's still fucking alive.
He's somewhere.
He's definitely living it up somewhere. Nice. But yeah, you're right. Like, he knew that there was shit going on for like a year, because he was obviously informed the day of, because he was trying to get a fucking private jet out. So why wouldn't you, like, because you know there's something going on, why wouldn't you move to a non-extradition country? You've already got holdings in Venezuela, right? They're not going to extradite you. Or I don't know, Iran, or like there's a bunch of countries that don't have extradition treaties with the United States or allies or whatever, and there's some really random ones. I remember, like, I looked into going on holiday to Nepal because it's really cheap there. Like, everything's really cheap in Nepal, or at least it was until like the earthquakes hit. But Nepal has no extradition treaties. That was just a random piece of information. I was like, why? And it was because they're like stuck between India and China and stuff, so they don't want to play favors because they don't want to upset anyone. But yeah, you could go and live like a king in Nepal at ridiculously high altitude, and why wouldn't he have done that? It doesn't make any sense.
And that gets him extra idiot points right there, because he's an asshole and an idiot.
Yeah, he really is. And he doesn't seem to understand that, like, a lot of capitalism and a lot of stuff around financial things are a little bit of gray. There's always a little bit of gray in the way people make money. Some people get shafted, whether it's longer work hours or less pay or whatever it might be. There's always something there. Whenever someone makes enough money, that there's always a bit of funniness around their rise to power. Someone's taken a hit for them to be successful at some point. But what he doesn't understand is that there are millions and millions of businessmen going to prison for Ponzi schemes. He seems to have either no insight or just is in complete denial, because, like they said, they found him guilty in scientia or whatever it is, because he knew exactly what he was doing was illegal, but he doesn't care.
And that's why he should stay in prison. It's some of those situations where it's like, dude, the old school egalitarian tribal sort of way of living is like, you people, you suck. You can't abide by our rules. You failed twice and you're super horrible. Go away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I agree with that, but not in our current systems.
Yeah, I think that there are ways and means. I'm a little bit more give people an opportunity to rehabilitate, learn from their mistakes, and multiple second chances, because we are humans. We're prone to errors, and actually, it's really important that people are given an opportunity to grow and learn from their mistakes, because it sometimes makes them much better people.
Yes.
Ironically, I've been watching She-Hulk, and one of the best things about that show is Neil Blonsky's character, the Abomination, is actually completely reformed. And it's really cool to see. Yeah, completely reformed in the series. Spoiler alert. But Tim, what's his name? The actor who plays him, who was in Pulp Fiction as well. He's really good. It's all quite lighthearted. It's a very lighthearted show. She-Hulk. It's very kind of.
I have to check that one. That's a Hulu or Disney.
I think it's Disney Plus.
They're both the same, I guess.
So yeah, it's the same company, isn't it? But yeah, it's like it was nice to see that they've taken this guy who's been in prison for 15 years in the storyline, and it's all played for laughs, but actually he's completely rehabilitated, and he's like a genuinely nice guy now. I like that as a storyline device. Like, he's learned from his mistakes.
I like that too. I just don't trust it.
No, I know. Well, actually, the character's gonna be in like they're gonna do a Thunderbolts show with like all the kind of criminals and stuff. They're gonna be in there. So I like it as a device, but actually in the real world, I don't think enough people are given second chances and opportunities to learn from their mistakes. I do feel that there are examples around us, even since we started this podcast, with the fucking Paul brothers. I mean, they're still not great people, but they seem to be improving as human beings, surprisingly.
Oddly, yeah. Like, my son is guiding me in the removal of my hate of both of them.
I know. I was when was it Logan? I guess it's Logan who was calling for UFC fighters to be paid a minimum of $50,000 per fight. I'm like, yeah, they should be. Enough of this, like $11,000 to get your fucking head kicked in.
Yeah, bullshit. Like, how much does it cost to treat a concussion?
I know, and like, how much are you going to shorten your career? Wasn't Abomination stuck at the bottom of the ocean? I know he's in federal prison in the show, and like She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters is arguing for his release, and it's a nice dynamic. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I got completely lost track of where we were talking there. But yeah, Logan Paul, I feel like he's growing up now finally, and like starting to realize the power that he wields, and maybe he's becoming a better person and easier to deal with. So I mean, there's still shit in his past, and stuff is coming out all the time about everyone, but I do feel like second chances are an option. But really, when you're in prison for 110 years, this guy, he's also of an age where, like, I doubt he's going to change. Like, he was in his mid to late 60s at that point. You know,
he lived a good enough life, fucking people over, that he can live a shitty life for the next
prison.
Yeah. So I want to give him extra points for screwing people over, or points for screwing people over and being an asshole. So that'll put him up to a C idiot. But sure. He wasn't smart enough to use his travel and cricket tournament to escape the charges and stuff that he knew were coming.
To get the fuck out.
He wasn't smart enough to use his friends with the damn cartel and the bank he owned in Venezuela.
I know.
To save his own ass. So yeah, this dude's at least an 80. Yeah, an 83.
83. I like that number, and you're absolutely right. I hadn't even considered like the cartel connections and the Venezuelan authorities. Like, just go.
He's
like, if you disappear into Mexico,
or really cocky.
I know. I guess so. And like, maybe he was super comfortable. He's like, it's never going to happen. They're never going to come for me and stuff. But they clearly were. They were clearly onto him. So yeah, I will gladly take an 83 for Alan Stanford, because it's such a huge amount of money and such a devastating effect on the people around him. But yeah, unfortunately, this seems to every 5-10 years we get one of these, right? We get a Ponzi or a Bernie Madoff or something like that.
Or Elizabeth Holmes.
Or some fucking random crypto douchebag. And there's plenty of those lingering around. So that's coming. The crypto world is going to be, I mean, it already is full of hucksters and cons.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yep.
So we'll wait and see what happens there.
I randomly get distracted by shiny things. And what is this shirt you got here?
Oh, that's James Dean.
James Dean, the president.
The president of the United States. What are we waiting for?
The AI president, huh?
The AI, yeah, that's right. Apparently, Matt Matt Pat from Game Theory thinks I'm a fucking AI. I take that as a compliment. He thinks that it was so convincing that it was an AI, but no, I'm a human. I have feelings. Prick me, I will bleed.
It's good stuff, man. All of that. Now I've gone through and watched all of that, and I'm excited to see what's coming out on the projects here that I try to follow along on the Discord on.
Yeah, there's so much happening in our world, and then like I've got like 4 ideas that I need to get down on paper, but we both work so hard, it's difficult to get anything done, isn't it, in your spare time? Because you've got other stuff to do. You got other commitments. You've got your work, and then you've got to do all the chores, and you've got to be a family person. And man,
hey, yes.
What are we waiting for? Buy the shirt. So I'll take that. That's going to get clipped. There's a new sorry, just randomly, because we're gonna go off air in a minute, but there's a new thing called Lev Dog, which has come to the forefront. So people in the Monument Mythos Discord have created a meme, and they found a picture of a dog with a pair of glasses that are strikingly similar to mine on, and they're like, it's Lev as a dog. So now I'm a meme, and it's randomly Lev Dog appearing in a GIF saying something completely random, like, hey, welcome to my Roblox channel, or something like that. Or
see, the that's body how you've made it.
Yeah, because I'm a meme now of a dog, and the dog is adorable, so I don't mind the meme at all, to be honest. But yeah, I've become a meme. I like that I've made it to that point in my life where my voice is being used and I'm memed. Yeah.
That's awesome. I gotta do something good for that. Yes, indeed. I honestly, I would say that I was busy, but I really just kind of climbed into a hole for a little while. And
hey, everyone does it, man. You know, and the reason we climb into holes is because there's a lot of shit going on. You know, that you don't just like randomly. You know, there's something going on that has got you to that stage. So, do you have an image of this, Toastazoid? If you go on Twitter or Instagram, if you search up Lev Dog, I don't think it's made its way onto Google just yet, but it's certainly out there. I've mentioned it on Twitter, so it's on my Twitter somewhere. Have you found something? But yeah, if you Google Lev Dog, I believe there's a rapper called Lev Dog, or a musician called Lev Dog as well. So yeah.
Well, at least you didn't make me Google Blue Waffle.
Yeah, that would have been bad, or D's nuts or something like that.
Oh yeah, so, no, I'm not seeing it yet on the Google, but I bet it'll be there in no time.
It'll be there soon. You get yourself on Twitter, and you can find Lev Dog relatively easily. So yeah, don't ever apologize for like getting into a situation where you need time. Everyone needs time, and like I have so much stuff I want to do. I've got a load of voice stuff piled up that I need to do. I've got like 5 different voices. I'm working on. I've managed to do Francis Bourgeois, which I think is brilliant. I've managed to do an impression. Have you ever heard of Francis Bourgeois? Google Francis Bourgeois.
Okay.
It's the funniest it's the most pure, beautiful thing you will ever see in your life. I found it. I can't unsee it. It's perfect. It is, isn't it? Lev Dog is kind of perfect. Yeah, Francis Bourgeois. I've got to see a locomotion here, and it's traveling at a certain speed, and you don't see these Class 36 locomotives anymore. Really wonderful to see one in the wild. Yeah, Francis Bourgeois is so funny. And I've been working on Hitchcock, which I really like. I like doing Hitchcock.
Yeah.
You've got to go inside and talk with a London accent. And yeah, so, but I've got that. We've got Minkowski's Continuum happening. And a lot of that, I'm like, right, I'm going to have to wait till Christmas to do that, because I've got so much shit going on. But don't ever feel bad about taking time for yourself. It's so important to do that. Holy shit.
Well, I'm glad guys. What?
I was going to say, we're guys of a generation who were never told to be able to do that, you know?
Right. And honestly, I guess I could take this platform to say that it's cool. And I appreciate that you're so understanding on it, that sometimes stuff can get to be a little overwhelming. And it's kind of normal to get the yips or anxiety where you just shut down. And if you don't deal with it, you end up in a situation like I was in last week where
you need time.
You shut down.
You absolutely, and it's so important that men especially take care of their own mental health. I mean, the epidemic of male suicide and mental health issues is such a big problem for men. in this generation and the younger generations as well. And that I do feel slightly envious of the younger generations, the Gen Z kids, because we're both like elder millennials, and we're kind of people a few years older than us, the Gen X's and stuff. We were told from a very young age, you do not talk about your feelings, you do not engage in and the British as well as American, the culture is you just get on with shit and you do it, and stop crying. What the fuck's the matter with you, you pansy? That sort of shit. Like, you're not allowed to look into your mental health. Whereas our kids and the younger generation, like, I'm so glad that they have the ability to have insight into their own feelings, and they're like, right, I'm just going to take myself off the internet for a couple of weeks, or I'm going to have a mental health day, or I'm going to have a day to myself and shit. So it's so important for men of our age to not only discuss that, but to deal with that shit, to take days to just be yourself and to be unwell and to be, do whatever makes you happy, because my God, we're in our 40s. We're not going to live a huge amount more. Let's fucking enjoy it and relax. So,
and to be fair, you never know when you're going out. So keep yourself as comfortable and happy as possible, man. Shit.
Yes. And on that note, I'm going to go and eat a load of junk food before bed. No, not really. Just maybe a packet of crisps. Yeah, Francis does sound boring. Google Francis Bourgeois. He's quite big on Instagram and TikTok. It's fucking hilarious and amazingly pure. He's a train spotter, and he attaches a 360 fisheye lens camera to his head, staring directly back at him. So his eyes are going off in that direction while he's going, oh, there's a train going by. Hello. Oh, it honks at him and he goes, oh, and he gets really excited. It's the funniest fucking thing. And it's slightly sexual as well. So you're like, oh my God, it sounds like he's having an orgasm. Honestly, Francis Bourgeois is 100%. I mean, his name isn't real. Like, he completely changed his name so that he could be private, but he is 100% genuine. And it's one of the purest things in the world. Look at Francis Bourgeois. It was a big thing a couple of years ago, but this guy's so hilarious. On that note, everyone, thank you so much. This has been one of our longer episodes. I really, really enjoyed it. Derek, did you have fun? Because you kind of stumbled across this one, right? Finding this person?
I did, and I always struggle sometimes with figuring it out, but I've been looking at this one since I started the Midnight Club, and I'm like, I got to do a cult person. I almost did the guy that owns Patagonia, and
did that thing, about that,
but only because he's friggin' awesome, not because he's an idiot.
Fucking donated his entire company to saving the planet and for the funds to go to that. Like, I love this guy. Why aren't there more people like him? Like, he's already made enough money, and he's just donated the company to people that can run it and use the money to save the planet. We need more people like that in the world, and less fucking Alan Stanfords and random hucksters that move to Hollywood. About the tree Rockefeller found being called Dave, I once tried to start a meme. Oh yeah, it'll happen eventually. Don't worry. The memes will keep coming in. So until next time, everybody, thank you so much, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. We will have a very special Halloween themed episode. We will have Halloween idiots for you. And also, don't forget to follow us on our social media. So if you go on Instagram, it's History's Greatest Idiots. If you go on Twitter, it's @Greatest Idiots. And you can go on patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots if you want to become our first ever supporter. But we will see you in a couple of weeks. It will be a Halloween special, and we'll have so many great surprises. So until then, Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Bye, everybody.
And we will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.